Hello, I'm Thomas and this is Building on a Budget Models. This is the third and final part of our Tamiya 124 Lotus Super 7 Series 2 build. I wanted to base the look of the car on the classic green and yellow Team Lotus livery, so I started by painting the bonnet into yellow and then used some Tamiya masking tape along the middle. This is a 1 cm wide tape and it fit quite nicely. I had to tape some of the parts together. As you can see there, they came apart. I went over this with a few coats of Tamiya TS43 Racing Green, and I'm pretty happy with the finished results. It's got quite a nice shine there, I feel. It was then time to do some of the decals, starting with the Lotus badge. There is a small recess on the front of the nose for the badge to go into. I chose to do the spots for the racing numbers like this whilst the parts were still taped together. Annoyingly, the different colours show through a little bit differently through the white spot, but there's not really anything you can do about that. I then added the circles to the side of the car for numbers as well. As the windscreens on this car are so small, I decided to put the Building on a Budget Models logo on the racing stripe instead. Quite liked how this looked with the yellow backdrop. I really wanted to go all out with the old school racer look, so I decided to have a look and found that I had some spare decals from the Hella Renault Alpine. So I started with this electrical switch off sign here. Later I decided to move it though down to the side of the engine. Also put some elf emblems in places for oil sponsorship. After the racing circles had been on the bonnet for a day, I then used a brand new craft knife blade to very carefully cut them out. I probably should have done this after putting the numbers in place, however I was later able to put the numbers on without any problems. I put some more sponsor logos and some custom ones with my name onto the bonnet as well. And I also painted where the wipers were going to go silver. Tamiya provide the numbers 0 to 8. Rotate the 6 if you want a 9. I asked my followers on Instagram what number they would use, and I got a mixture of results, but the most popular by some way was 7. No prizes for guessing why. I started by using a little bit of micro set to help the numbers stay in place. Tried to get them as central as possible. I also looked at Jim Clark's Lotus 25 for inspiration, nearly went with 4. On the Lotus 25, Jim Clark's number was diagonal rather than straight up down, so I decided to put the 7 at a little bit of angle as well. This would mean it would go over the joins, so I needed to tape the sides of the bonnet cover together as I'd already cut it out. I needed to put the decals onto the rear fenders before the tail lights went into place, and found that these larger elf logos fit quite well. Coated them with a little bit of micro sol to help them adhere to the curves, and then added a GB emblem from the Revell Samba Bus set. I like this little Rally Monte Carlo emblem here, which I think is from the Tamiya Celica Rally. Put it inside the car just as an extra feature. I then moved on to doing the radiator. There are several photo etch parts which recommend to be done in semi-gloss black. However, once attached, you can't really see them. If I was doing this again, I probably would have left them in the bare metal colour. As you can see here, they kind of disappear once you glue them in place, using a little bit of super glue. I'm not sure how much of this you would even see once the front nose cone is fitted anyway. But there is the completed engine bay. There's a small fan which goes onto the front of the radiator here, which you might be able to see through the grille. These decals here are for Foglight Company. They've got a nice little cat mascot. It's important not to put the decals higher than this, as that will get in the way of where the window is put. I cut through the 7 once it had been in place for a day, and then very carefully peeled off the masking tape. The photo etch grille has 2 pins on either side, which you can use pliers or tweezers like these to bend into a 90-degree angle to fit into the holes. I left this in the bare metal and was pretty happy with how it turned out. I then added a couple of dots of the Gorilla Glue gel onto the backs of them. The headlights were done in racing green, and then the chrome sprue had the housings on, which were glued in place with a little bit of super glue on the inside. I then used a little bit of the yellow marker pen to colour the headlight to give them more of an old-fashioned look. And the outside of the lenses were done in a little bit of black Sharpie to look like the rubber trim. Finally, a bit of PVA glue was put into place, and there's also a small tab at the bottom of them to make sure that you get the lenses in the right position. There's a couple of small pinholes on both the right and the left for you to put the lights into place. The arms that they were on were done in semi-gloss black. This is fiddly because it's so small, but the fit is really nice, and I didn't have much to worry about them looking different on both sides. I had a little bit of an issue with the fitment of the nose cone, and it created a little bit of a gap between it and the engine cover, so I ended up having to trim the suspension arms a little bit at the front. I don't know why this was. The roll bar though, there was no difficulty with here. However, if you do plan to add the roll bar, you need to first cut some holes into the leather cover at the back, as you can see here, for them to fit around that bar. The cover itself I'd done in semi-gloss black, gave quite a nice leather finish. The wheels that came with the kit looked a bit like steel wheels, and then there were some chrome hubcaps to go over the tops here. I like these, but I also found that I had some spare mini light wheels from a Fujimi old Mini Cooper build, so I decided to try to see if I could convert them. I first found that I had a drill bit that was the same size as the openings in the centre of them, so even though the Fujimi wheels were a male fitment, if I drilled through the centre of them very carefully, I could push out the original pins. Need to be very careful because I plan to keep the chrome look of the wheels, as I felt that this was accurate to the colour I wanted. And then through, and the pin had fallen out completely. Now these wheels were a little bit wider than the tyres, so they didn't fit just yet. I put the tyre on as close as I could to the edge, and saw that there was about a millimetre or so of extra wheel on the inside. Decided that the best way to remove this was to use some 120 grit sandpaper, which is quite coarse, and looked periodically to see how much of the wheel I had sanded down. I've sped up this about 4 times as fast. I had to keep looking periodically, and then eventually it was sanded down to the right thickness. And it clipped on really nicely. I'm really pleased with how these wheels look on the car. The rear wheels simply click on over a pin, but the front wheels have a pin that goes through the centre of them and then into the middle of the disc brake. I put a little bit of Gorilla Glue on the inside of this and then stuck them into place. I found I had some spare Dunlop decals from some tyre decal sets that I bought, and liked how these looked, as they were period correct and the yellow also went really well with the Lotus colours. I used one of the kit wheels for the spare on the back and coloured it in aluminium. The tail lights were done in Sharpie red, and then some Tamiya semi-gloss black around the rubber trims, with a little bit of chrome silver on the inside. Markers help you position them into the right place. I then decided to do some scratch building with some milliput to make a tool case. This is superfine white milliput, which you get an equal part of both bars, and then roll and squeeze it together for about 7 minutes. As it's white, you need to be very, very careful, as normally milliput is different colours on both sides. I then rolled it out into a flat piece and found that I had some spare tools from the Tamiya Rally Mechanics set. A spanner, a hammer, and some pliers. Cut it into a rough rectangle and then folded it over at the bottom to make some pockets, and then used the same craft knife to sort of press in to do a kind of threaded seam, and then did another little bit to do a tab at the end. I left this for a day to make sure that it was completely hard, and used some Humbrol leather tan matte paint to give it a nice aged finish, and I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I used a 7 decal from a decal sheet to put a little logo in the bottom corner like it was branded to the Lotus 7. And also went over with the tools with a little bit more brown and silver chrome to help them stand out. The arms on the side of the large windscreen were done in silver, as was the surround of the windscreen. Even though I was doing this as a racing car, I preferred the large windscreen to the small racing ones, which were also supplied in the kit. The windscreens and the exhaust pipe were done in flat aluminium, and the rear view mirror was done in semi-gloss black. I then used a little bit of aluminium tape on the back to make the reflective mirror surface. I had to drill open the hole for the wing mirror a little bit wider as some of the paint had got into it. There are small little raised parts for you to position the window, but they basically go directly behind the little bumps for the windscreen wipers. Used a little bit of super glue on both sides, and this fit really nicely. I then used my trick of doing a little bit of black Sharpie on the underside of the windscreen wiper to make it look like the rubber wiper blade. These fit in really well, and you could put them into a raised position should you want to. There they are, both in place. The indicators that go on the side of the front fenders are very, very fiddly, so be very careful. I decided I wanted part of the exhaust pipe to have a more chrome finish, so got some more of the aluminium tape and rolled it out very carefully along this section of the middle of the pipe. This is a really simple finish. It's important that the pipes from the engine line up with this hole on the side so that the side pipe can be put into place. There's a small tab just around where the white circle is here, which also helps fit it into place. I decided to add the number plate onto the bar for the spare wheel, and then used the one that came with the kit, but I didn't put the one on the front. Need to get better at working out where the camera is when I'm doing this. Then used a little bit of silver paint on the end of a cocktail stick to do the poppers which go onto the leather cover at the back. And here is the toolkit to go underneath. I must say that I test fitted this before I had painted it to make sure that it fit in. And there it is, completely hidden. And now for some finishing shots. I've really enjoyed making this kit. It is truly like nothing else on my display shelf. The original tooling was from 1984, although with typical Tamiya quality. The seatbelts and photo etch have really brought this kit up to date. As you can see here from my decals and paintwork, you can make this pretty much however you want to. I really enjoyed this build, and for the price that Tamiya are selling the kit at, I really recommend that you get one too. Thanks a lot for watching. Please do comment, share, like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.